empowering minds, amplifying voices, and transforming lives. This is the Untold Stories of Hope podcast brought to you by the Destiny Connect Foundation. Your hosts, Zion Enogewu and Puffy Medupe.
Right. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. From where you are joining us from all over the world, we want to say a big welcome to another edition of our podcast, The Untold Stories of Hope, brought to you by Destiny Connect Foundation, a place where we are empowering mind, amplifying voices, and transforming life. It's a place where we take your story to the people that needs to hear it. Because we believe that every story has the power to change, the power to transform, the power to inspire, and to give life to those who feel they don't have hope anymore. So my name is Zion Enogewu, joining you all the way from Nigeria. And you know I'm not doing this all by myself. I have my brother all the way from South Africa with me on stage already, Mr. Puffy Medupe.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Zion. Welcome to yet another exciting episode of Untold Stories of Hope podcast. Indeed, as Mr. Zion said, brought to you by Destiny Connect Foundation. And we're excited, to be here today and to engage with you, to take you through the journey of Untold Story of Hope to our phenomenal and exceptional guest. Remember that you can follow Destiny Connect Foundation either on Facebook, on LinkedIn, or even on YouTube. Or you can say destinyconnectfoundation.org. That's our website, whereby you can see the podcast. You can even become a member of the Destiny Connect Foundation community. And of course, we are always, talking to guests who are really bringing the most of beautiful things in this platform. And I really am excited to be introducing today's guest just to make you feel comfortable. I mean, she's a phenomenal woman. She's a leader. She's globally acclaimed and recognized, and she's got a lot of great things that she's going to share with us today. We've got in the house Ms. Helen Will, and she is one of us. That's what I can say. She has been part of also Destiny Connect Foundation as an advisory board member. That's an honor. Mr. Zion can even affirm that it's an honor, to be in such a position. So Ms. Helen Will is also the founder of People Solutions, which is, a consulting firm, an HR consulting firm, because that is a specialty, consulting for South African small, medium enterprises and multinationals. She's also, I believe, a strategist in terms of HR policies and handbook. She deals with compensation and benefits compliance, the well-being, mentorship, and HR graduates. And this is her specialty. This is who she is, and we are grateful to have her in the platform. I mean, when we talk about Untold Stories of Hope, this is what you are going to hear today, because all the engagements and the conversations that we are going to have with Helen Will today, it will be a guideline to anyone who might be listening out there and wanting to be encouraged. Helen, welcome to Untold Stories of Hope.
Thank you, Puffy. Thank you so much for the introduction, and thank you to DCF and to you for the warm welcome.
Amazing. I've always known you as a calm person. Everywhere I speak to you, I can feel this calmness. I'm even wearing a white t-shirt today, just to show that someone who's coming today is a calm person. So we are grateful to have you here today. You are a great example to the society, and Untold Stories of Hope podcast is really honored to have your presence today. And we are going to have a beautiful conversation unpacking, the leadership that we are running with today, because there are so many people, Helen, who knows about leadership. There are so many people who knows about HR or, the management side of doing things, but there are few people who knows the procedure. Today, we are talking about professionalism and integrity in leadership and workspaces. That's what we are talking about today. So without a waste of time, let's go right into it. So I want to ask you this beautiful question. What does professionalism and integrity mean to you as a leader? And how have these values shaped your career?
Right. Thank you for the question, Puffy. So yes, professionalism and integrity have been part of my working career for many, many years. I worked mostly in the corporate environment, and I used to report directly to the most senior person in the organization. So there were many times when I needed to build relationships first with that individual. So if I came in as a new person, a new HR person, the first person I needed to connect with was the person I reported to. And developing that relationship took a lot of professionalism. Now, professionalism obviously is made up really of our conduct, our ethics system, the way we behave, and the way we interact with others. And that can be professionally as well as personally. But on a professional level, it was firstly to develop the relationship with the person I reported to. And it was about understanding that individual and the role he played or she played in the organization, and how I could support them in order to be better at what they do. So I learned a couple of skills along the way. So professionalism, I think firstly for me, is about listening. Because in order to help somebody, I needed to understand what the problem was. And you're not going to get that information if you're talking all the time. You need to listen very carefully to what they're saying. And then beyond that, you don't always get all the information. So I needed to learn to ask the right questions in order to gain deeper insight as to what they needed and what type of solution I needed to offer in order to solve the problem. So HR really is a lot about problem solving, whether it's people, solutions, whether it's processes, whether it's policies, it doesn't matter. Conflict resolution, there's a wide range of things that HR encompasses. Then I needed to also learn about being respectful to people in authority. That person was the most senior person. So being respectful, I think, was also one of the first things that I learned in being a professional person in a professional environment. It was about giving them respect for the authority and acting out accordingly. And obviously, because if I did have staff below me, my way of doing things with that senior person gave them an example of how they should act with other people as well, and others who came to HR looking for help. So it was about leading by example.
Yeah.
And then I think the last thing was that I used to look after the payroll systems in most of my positions. And that is such a highly responsible type of position. So you need to not only act with responsibility, but integrity. Because most of the organizations I worked for used to be audited once a year by accountants, and they would come in and they would interrogate all the records of payroll, etc. And I would be asked questions. And I was proud of my records and always did whatever I could to represent the company properly with integrity and professionalism, knowing I'd done a good job. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you so much, Ellen, for that good response. That was very powerful. And I love the fact when you spoke about leading by example. Because to be honest with you, when it comes to the integrity and being professional, there's little you can say. Because at the end of the day, it is what people see you do that will be the best example for them. So I love the fact you mentioned that leading by example. So for anyone listening to us right now, you want to be able to teach people how to live a life of integrity and embrace it. It starts with you by living an example so that when people see you do it, they do what you do and not just what you say. So thank you so much again, Ellen. And this brings us to our next question. Can you share with us an untold story where your integrity was tested in leadership, and how did you navigate the situation? because we know as leaders, you're always on the spotlight and you will be tested every now and then. So can you share with us a story where you had an experience where your integrity was tested as a leader, and how did you handle that situation?
Right. I can fortunately say within my professional career, I was never really tested at that level. I was blessed to work for organizations that did follow the rules and did the right things. So I can't really give you an example of that. I could perhaps speak more personally on a personal level and give you some examples from that aspect. And maybe that will illustrate a bit about how my integrity plays out in who I am.
Yes.
So, yes, I've got a childhood friendship since I was 11 years old. And this particular girl and I have known each other for many years. And she was the class clown and just had such an adventurous, fun streak in her. And my part to this friendship was I was the stable force. So the word of reason, the sound of reason. So on an occasion, we were in our teens at the time, and she wanted to, as everyone else in our group at the time, wanted to experiment with smoking. Now, I grew up in a household of both my parents being smokers, and I really don't like smoking at all. I've been like this since I was tiny, so it was a natural thing in me. And so she wanted me to participate in this. And despite our really strong and good relationship, I stood my ground and I said, no, I'm not doing that. So out of a group of about 10 or 15 people, I think I was the only person who refused to smoke. And to this day, I proudly say that I've never smoked. I don't like it, even though both my parents smoked. And so that's just an example of that. Despite someone being really close to me and wanting to do things that make them happy, that wasn't part of my value system. And I knew I just wouldn't cross that boundary. So I hope that's one of the examples. I could perhaps go on to something a little bit more personal as well. God and family are top of my value system. And I'm a mother of twins, and not many people know that because I haven't shared it much. So as a believer, Bible principles really form part of who I am and the way I act, whether it's in the workplace and whether it's in a friendship zone, it doesn't matter. It forms the basis of who I am as a person and the basis of my integrity. So when my twins were born, my son and daughter, they're son and daughter twins, they both had colic for the first month. And my daughter overcame it after 1 month, and my son continued for another 4 months. That was a really trying time. I was alone most of the time during the day. I had no support. My mum was living in a different city, and I don't have any sisters, and I didn't have any friends at the time who were in the position I was in. So they were at work and tied up with their own lives. But it was through that really trying time when I only had 4 hours sleep out of every 24 for 5 months that I came to understand my weaknesses. And without God, I would never have got through it. And it also, the greatest lesson I learned during that time was patience. Because when you have a child that's screaming incessantly for hours on end and you can't calm them, it's extremely challenging. It takes you to the edge. It really does. And I suppose a lot of my calmness that I project and patience comes from that. And that situation actually was the foundation to developing the people skills that I have today.
Wow, amazing. If you've just tuned in now, welcome to Untold Stories of Hope podcast, brought to you by Destiny Connect Foundation. We are still here with the phenomenal Helen Will. She's an HR expert. I can tell you, she's a human resource management expert, and you can hear by everything she's saying. Remember that we are still talking about professionalism, integrity in leadership and workspaces. Now, Helen, let me put it like this. I've heard what you said, in terms of HR from the beginning. It is about conduct. Professionalism is about conduct, is about ethics. And what Mr. Zion asked you in terms of your integrity being tested, there are times when people look down on, careers, or, when you do work as an HR person, people look down on management assistant, people look down on, someone who works, as an assistant in a company. But I understand that you are the heart of any organization, because if you do problem solving, if you do payrolls and all these things, you strategize policies, for an organization, then it means what you are doing, you are serving as a heart of an organization. Now, since your integrity was not tested, but I believe the next question will also, help us to learn more from you, because everything that you've said, I've heard it very, very loud and clear, and it makes sense. So today's leaders, all over the world, they always face ethical dilemmas, and we all come across that. Sometimes some people don't come across that. So how do you maintain your professionalism, when you face pressure and conflicting interests? It might not be ethical dilemmas that are really, related to corruption, or if there are, you will take us through that journey, or ethical dilemmas in terms of having to compromise in your professional space, or any kind of ethical dilemmas. And then how do you handle clients which are hard, to receive? Or how do you handle pressure in the office? It can be pressure from management because there's a lot of work that is given to you. There's a lot of expectation. Sometimes you've got clients in an organization that are coming, and some of them, they don't quite give you the recognition or the respect that you deserve. How do you handle such things? Helen?
I think Helen is frozen.
Oh, yeah. And Mr. Zion, I think what we are learning from her is exceptional, based on what I was saying now. HR is one of those careers that people look down on. But when I look at Helen's, professionalism, when I look at, her experience in the corporate industry, being a consultant, as an HR consultant, I realize that she does the most, that the organization will now depend and rely on someone like her for it to keep on functioning. I mean, this is what we are talking about when we say we are learning.
Yes, I love something she mentioned earlier in her response, that whatever she does is built on her faith, her trust in God. That was very profound for me. And because everything we do, it's first who we are, not actually the organization. We bring our personality, we bring our belief into the organization. And she having a belief in God, I think that's just cemented and give her a solid foundation to build on the integrity and professionalism. Ellen, you're welcome back.
Powerful, welcome back, Helen.
Yes.
We were just re-emphasizing what you are saying.
Right. Okay. So I'm going to start with answering your question, Puffy, by going back to the workplace. So in terms of HR, you've said some people can look down upon HR, and a lot of people have a negative connotation towards HR because they believe that HR just looks after the employer interests and don't care about staff. And honestly, there really are people out there that do that. I'm proud to say that wasn't my style. I truly tried wherever I could to find the common ground between both sides and got one side to see the other side's perspective. It is so important in problem solving in order to do that. But coming down to pressures and how many different pressures you can receive. Firstly, you have the internal pressure, and that could be deadlines regarding certain activities or projects that HR is involved in. You need to meet those deadlines. You need to go to meetings and give feedback on what's happening, etc. But beyond that, they've got a lot of external stakeholders that impact HR. And many people don't realize this. So we are answerable to SARS, to Departments of Labor, to consultants that might help with conflict resolution. The employment agencies, we deal with them. We have to, give them the right information to help us find the right people to recruit. There's just a wide range of people. So yes, it can be a very stressful and a very challenging role to carry, whether you're junior or senior. It doesn't matter, because you're going to have to learn along the way as you go through your HR career. So yes, it's very pressurizing. But at the end of the day, if you give of your best and you know you are doing what's right for everybody concerned, you are following the policies, you're doing your best to uplift other people across the organization, you walk away fulfilled and rewarded that you've done a good job. So the challenges and the pressures at the end of the day aren't at the forefront of your mind. You walk in the next day and you take on the next challenge, because you know somehow you will get through it. And you usually have a team around you. You've got other people you can turn to.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much, Helen, for that response. Yes, to be honest, I love the fact you were so direct and honest with the point that yes, there will be challenges, there will be pressure. So maintaining integrity comes at a cost. Being a leader that upholds integrity, there's a cost for it. We are not saying it's going to be an easy journey, but I tell you, if you can hold on to your integrity, it's actually worth it. I love what Helen said, that as you are going through the pressure, as you are going through what you are going through, facing the challenges, keep integrity at the front of your mind, not the challenges, not the pressure. Focus on being a person of integrity. And with that, before you know it, you go to the next step, you face the next challenge, you are going and going. Before you know it, you are done and you become victorious. So thank you so much, Helen, for that great response. We appreciate you so much. When it comes to integrity in a workplace and, upholding professionalism, we know that a lot boils down to the leadership. A lot boils down to the leadership. Having integrity as a core value of the organizational system, it's very, very important. And this brings us to our next question. How does integrity influence a workspace? Like when we are working, how does it influence it? And what role does leadership have to play when it comes to upholding integrity? And if possible, you can give us practical examples from your personal experience on how you have seen integrity impact the workspace.
Yes, definitely. Leadership, firstly, with integrity in the workplace and professionalism, it starts with them. Culture, professionalism, the way anything happens in that organization starts with leadership. So the leaders are to lead by example, and they are to emanate the behavior that they want to see in others within the organization. So that's their primary role. And so what they can do is, firstly, they can demonstrate some vulnerability by asking for help, because a lot of leaders struggle with asking for help. So by doing that, the minute they show they're a bit more vulnerable, people are drawn to them. And the other ways they could say, I don't know, because not everybody knows everything. So leaders really play an important role in actually establishing integrity and professionalism in the workplace, because it starts with them. Then leaders do face challenges in that, and they can, in facing the challenges could come from various sectors, conflicts of interest. They could come from where personal gains and organizational responsibility clash. and they need to face those. They could decide on whether short-term profits or long-term sustainability is a better idea. So they can face that challenge. They've got to manage a lot of confidential information. And so that's another one. Navigating discrimination and harassment. That is a very difficult topic for leaders to actually to maintain and, to face that challenge. And then finally, about whistleblowing. Sometimes in the organization, that leader might be faced with a situation that is challenging, an ethical matter within the organization, and they have to decide right then, do they whistleblow and raise it, and or are they going to compromise, maybe on their personal value system for the sake of keeping it under wraps? So yes, leaders face a lot of challenges.
Wow. I'm glad because this is a real conversation that we are having, especially about, human resource, corporate, organograms, and how to handle things professionally and ethically in a workspace. And, I'm glad that you mentioned how you always uphold your integrity, as a leader, because we regard you as a leader based on your number of years of experience in the HR department. Let's talk about how leaders inspire professionalism in a workplace to their juniors. How leaders inspire people to uphold professionalism when no one is watching. Let me put it like this, Helen. We've got a lot of companies whereby the only right thing that is done, it is done when someone is watching. We still have crisis in workplace of late coming. Let's talk about simple things. We talk about late coming. We talk about, not meeting deadlines. We talk about, people using resources in a workplace for the interests, not exactly the interest of the organization, but for their own personal interest. There are people who open their own companies using the resources of the current organization they are employed in. We still have people, Helen, who go to work. Some of them, they're intoxicated, with substance, either alcohol, or some are taking drugs, and I'm glad that you even mentioned earlier that in your entire life, you never wanted to associate yourself with such. So let's talk about how leaders can inspire people to do the right thing, to have integrity even when people are not watching. Of course, just now you were answering a question that leaders must lead by example. But then in this case, we are asking this question as a way of saying to you, are there any precautionary measures that have been taken if someone is not practicing integrity in their profession? What happens if someone is not showing up at work on time? If someone comes to work intoxicated and things like that? As an HR expert, what are the procedures and what are some of the steps that are being taken by leaders to make sure that they keep their staff members, focused and committed to the work that they are being hired for?
Lovely. That's a good question. Thank you. Right. So, yes, it wouldn't only be about the leader. The leader is going to have line managers that are going to be reporting to him or her, right? And to the side of that, you have HR. So HR plays a huge role in those type of situations. So let's take, for example, somebody arrives at work, they've taken a breathalyzer and they failed the test and they've been told to go home. Now, the very next step, whoever's taken the test is invariably going to notify the line manager and say, your worker XYZ isn't coming into work today because they were intoxicated and we've sent them home. From there, the line manager will contact HR. And HR now is faced with the dilemma of the person not coming in. So it's a bit of a twofold. Firstly, you don't have someone who was expected to arrive for work, and you might have to find an alternate person to cover that shift. So that's one aspect. Then the other aspect is the person is drunk, and isn't able to work. So what do the company policies say? It's HR's role to enforce that company policy, to look back on it. So you would have governmental laws that would govern processes within companies, but then you get other policies that are company level. They're not governed by law. They are governed by what that company wants to set as a blueprint for how things will work in their organization. If things go wrong, what are we going to do? And that's the purpose of your company's policies and procedures. And that's where HR must kick in all the examples you mentioned, even late coming. So the employee, for some reason, has arrived maybe 2 hours late for shift. The line manager is the first person to become aware of it because the employee reports to the line manager. So the line manager then is upset because they've lost 2 hours of productivity already, and they will get straight onto HR. So they won't involve the leader at that level. It will be HR that will take over. HR then has to go in accordance with the policies once again. What does it say? So most organizations have what you call a code of discipline, and it will list the types of transgressions that could happen. Late coming could be one of them. Intoxication on site. Whatever it is, it's listed in this document. And then it will tell you what the first, second, and third offenses would mean in terms of what could happen. How is this to be treated? So yes, HR then is the person who, if it's a first offense, the outcome for that might be a verbal warning. So either the line manager and HR collectively could call the person in and say, look, you've been late, and this has been the impact on your team, and this is why we can't accept it going forward. They might have had a good reason, and then you can say, look, on this occasion, we are giving you a verbal warning. You still put a verbal warning in writing because otherwise there's no record of it. So you still keep that. If it was a second or a third offense, then you must follow the next steps. The next step might be a first written warning, and the third step could be a second written warning, or it could be a final written warning, depending on the severity of the matter. So
Wow.
each of your examples would fall in line with probably a staff member transgressing a rule, the line manager being involved, and them referring to HR to ensure, that the policies and procedures are followed accurately for the company and within the laws.
You are really an expert. You are really an expert in this HR, career. I can imagine even when someone's salary is short, they will come to you and say, hey, Helen, my money is short. What's going on? And you need to respond to say, why is their salary short? But let's now, as we are getting closer to wrap up, the podcast, let's talk about what keeps you going, Helen, for you not to burn out. I've seen how people would be familiar with their careers. As people keep on doing something, sometimes people become too familiar. They are no longer performing. They are no longer doing what is right. People get exhausted along the way. I mean, I can tell that you've been doing human resource work for quite a number of years. And obviously you have more experience and you are matured literally about this career. What keeps you going? How do you avoid burning out? And also, what makes you not to be familiar with your career, so that you can keep growing, so that you can keep, producing and advancing? There's a lot of competition out there. Sometimes we forget. We do those things so good that we forget there's competition. We forget there's someone out there who can do this better than you.
Absolutely. So how do I keep going? Firstly, I love what I do. So it's about passion. It's about passion of working with people and trying to help someone with any problem that they're facing. So that's important for me. I do enjoy the one-on-one. I think that is my power zone. Although groups, I'm comfortable in groups as well. It's just with a one-on-one, you can have more of an impact because it's as you and I are having a conversation now, we can speak to each other and we can connect. So I do enjoy that. How don't I burn out? Well, I suppose that's a bit of learned behavior over many years, because as a younger person, I was a complete workaholic. And I really used to work very long hours. And I had to learn that I got to a point where I realized I was going to burn out. I didn't burn out, but I realized I'd got myself into a situation that I'd given the impression by what I was offering to the table that this could always continue. But I'd created that situation. And then I had to sit and with God's help, realize how am I going to undo it? You know, so I had to find ways within myself and work on myself as to why was I doing that. And so it was about finding balance at the end of the day, I'd put work really high on top of my priorities. And I've said to you that God and family are. Yes. So I was challenging my own value system and I realized I was going off the wrong track. So the minute I focused back on family and getting that balance right, then, you know, that helped me over the years to stop from burning out.
That is powerful. And you know what? I believe that even people who have worked or served under you, you know, I'm sure that now they are highly professional. If you can give one message to leaders out there who are watching the podcast now, if you can give one message to them about how professionalism and integrity can transform their workplaces, what would you say to them?
I would say lead by example as the first bit of advice. Lead by example. Act and behave in the way that you expect your staff to behave, because that's crucial. When things go wrong, at the end of the day, those leaders are answerable maybe to the law or to other parts or management within the organization, their top leaders. So they've got to realize that they are the ones answerable. So going ahead and just doing anything you like because that makes you feel comfortable, no, it's not right. It's best to lead by example and the others will follow suit. Staff love that. I've learned one thing about staff. They love having boundaries and they like knowing that the person at the top who's giving them orders and instructions is following the rules and abides by ethical behavior. I know that without any doubt in my mind. So that's my advice. You know, lead by example and live by ethical standards in everything you do.
Amazing. Helen, we always have this part in the podcast where we give a leader such as yourself the opportunity to encourage someone out there who's watching. Globally, there's someone out there who's been fighting their dreams, who's been fighting to become a professional. Some people cannot cope with corporate industry. Some people, they give up on their careers. Sometimes around the globe, at Destiny Connect Foundation, that is why we advocate for the love of humanity, you know, because we believe that human beings are the most important thing ever. Now, what can you say to someone out there who lost hope? Let's say there's a young girl out there, there's a young boy, or there's an older man or woman who's watching this podcast now and they feel like the burden of life has taken over. They don't have the necessary, you know, education or the money to further their studies. You know, we are still living in a world where some communities don't have resources. You know, there are people who still don't have internet today. There are still people who don't have water. there are people who don't have the necessary resources to enhance and advance their own lives. And someone will come across this podcast, Helen, and they are going to hear your voice. What can you say to this person so that they don't give up and they don't lose hope, no matter the odds that are against them or no matter the circumstances that they are facing?
First piece of advice I would give them is to reach out to Destiny Connect Foundation, because there are people within that organization who are able to help. If they have chosen an HR career, I would love to work with someone that is looking for some guidance. They might not have even graduated. They just want to know something about HR and what it means in the corporate world or even a blue-collar environment. So it's about speaking to people. Reach out to DCF. Speak to a person like me. Research other HR people or the field that you want to go into. Maybe Google people. Go and find out who's out there, who succeeded in the field you want to be in. Reach out to them. Say you just want to talk. There are many people who would just share their story with you and will listen and offer guidance as to where they can go. So I don't have all the answers as to what they can do, but I do suggest they reach out. And as a start, if it's someone in the HR world, I would love to talk to them. They can reach out to me. And from there, I could perhaps offer guidance as to what they could do to gain the resources that they need to get that HR career that they really seek.
That is powerful, and thank you for that. And how can people reach you? Surely there will be people who will be inspired by this podcast, and how can they reach you? Any social media, your website, how can people link up with you?
Right, so my cell number is 082 716 7597. My email is Helen, Helen, at People Solutions, that's pplsolutions.co.za. The website is People Solutions, pplsolutions.co.za. And yes, I think that's about it. So I've also got, I'm sure if they reached out to any of those three connections that I've given, they'll be able to reach me. And I'd be more than happy to speak to someone in response to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Helen, for taking your time to come in our space, Untold Stories of Hope podcast. And we wish you nothing but the best. And may everyone that come your way, find, the empowerment that they are looking for. I mean, with this amount of treasure that you are carrying, as experience, knowledge, and wisdom, not only in the career of HR, human resource, but I believe, in many other fields that you can come on board and help the vulnerable masses all over the globe who are looking forward, to engage with you. If you've just joined in now, well, Untold Stories of Hope podcast is now about to end, but don't worry, you can catch this episode, on repeat in our platforms, whether it's YouTube, Destiny Connect Foundation. You can follow us also on LinkedIn and also on Facebook, or you can say info at destinyconnectfoundation.org, or however that you want to communicate with us on the social platform. And we are really excited that you have watched, this episode. It will help you a lot. Ms. Helen Will has given us all the resources, the knowledge, and the empowerment that we need in order for us to proceed, moving forward. So if you have an untold story of hope that you also want to share with us in our platforms, you know how to reach us at Destiny Connect Foundation. You can come through and let us know what is your untold story of hope. And I believe that your story will be able to change the world. Untold Stories of Hope podcast brought to you by Destiny Connect Foundation. What do? We empower your mind, we amplify your voice, and we transform your life. That's what happens. Thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you so much, for taking time to watch this episode and also share it. May everyone who wants to hear, hear the message that was spoken today. From me, Pafemi Dupi, all the way from South Africa, I'm just saying goodbye. Mr. Zion Enogeru, on his behalf as well, all the way from Nigeria, we just want to say thank you for tuning in on behalf of Destiny Connect Foundation. All right, sharp.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode of Untold Stories of Hope podcast. We hope you enjoyed and you were inspired by today's conversation. Remember, you can get more access to resources plus join a thriving global community of changemakers by visiting our website at destinyconnectfoundation.org. Please subscribe to our channel and spread the word. Don't forget to turn the notification on. Until next time, keep inspiring your world.